Hey guys, it's Bailey. Welcome back to the channel and thanks so much for tuning in to what's going to be a review of all the brand new Smashbox cover shop palettes that recently came out. They sent all of them to me about 2-3 weeks ago, so I've been trying all of them to the best of my ability. It's taken, obviously it's taken weeks now at this point, but you've seen me using them here and there, wearing them in videos, using them in videos. I recently did the husband did my makeup challenge, so it's not all that informational. It's kind of funny, but you don't like really understand anything about the palette. So this video is going to be telling you all about those palettes as well as comparing them to other similar palettes I may or may not have in my collection, just to give you a frame of reference as you're looking at these. Maybe you own a similar palette because you tend to be attracted to those colors, or maybe you've just heard a lot about a similar palette and so you're trying to figure out if you want that palette or if this is more your speed. So that's why I wanted to include those comparisons in here, but because that can make for a long video, we got 7 palettes to talk about today, I think. Yeah, I think it's 7. I'm gonna put timestamps to each palette in the description bar below. That way you can kind of hop around if you're really only interested in hearing about 1 or 2 or however many. So check the description bar below so you can hop ahead to where you want to be. In the meantime, let's go ahead and get started. The only thing I don't know, however, and this might be a good time to start getting into the comparisons, let's just go ahead and start with this guy. We have an all matte shadow palette in this group, and I don't know if the formula is the same or different chemically. Like, I don't have an ingredient deck for the palette I'm about to talk about, so I don't know if they are the same formula. One is the Smashbox Photo Matte Eyes. This is their first, or I guess their most recent all matte eyeshadow palette. I did a full review of this, but basically the gist was the formula was all well and good, like liked it well enough, but there were so many shades in here that I felt it could just be pared down. I get a lot of similar looks because there are so many similar shades in here, and so I thought you could really cut out a few of these shades to get the same range of looks, and so I feel like that is exactly what this matte eyeshadow palette does in a nutshell. I mean, look at that. Very similar range of shadows, from your cool neutrals, your pink neutrals, your gray, your matte black. It really has all of it here, but just in a smaller packaging. And I feel like texture-wise, the formulas are very similar, but like I said before, I can't confirm if they are exactly the same because I don't have the ingredient deck for, oh no, I don't have the ingredient deck for this guy. These aren't available anywhere, but the Photo Matte and the double exposure, full exposure, all of those are available online. I just haven't seen any for these yet. The other matte comparison I wanted to make, because this is another recent launch, is the Urban Decay Ultimate Naked Basics. Again, have a review of this that I can link down below, but this one obviously has many more shadows and it skews both warm and cool and even plummy leaning, but I thought I'd give it a go just to see how it compared, and it is shockingly comparable to the top row here. So if you saw the Urban Decay Ultimate Naked Basics and you were like, I really like those cooler shades, this might be what you want to go for. You do get a nice balance of some warmer or neutral leaning neutrals, if that makes sense, but it really gets rid of these super warm orangey tones and does it in a more compact packaging. Next up is the palette I'm wearing right now, and I was immediately drawn to it. Here it is, lots of beautiful berries, golden, warm oranges, the browns, and then I realized the reason I am so drawn to it, and this is another reason that compelled me to do all these comparisons, is because it's almost exactly like, but again, a more compressed version of the Anastasia Beverly Hills Modern Renaissance palette. If you've been with me for a while, like literally the last 6 months ever since I got this thing, it's been in a favorites video. So I know and love this guy, but this is really just like the abridged version. If you just want a taste of it's kind of a greatest hits of the Modern Renaissance palette, but because it has, I mean, let me hold them side by side so you can actually see. It has the matte berry, it has the matte burnt orange, the matte dark chocolate brown, and then you have a couple of like pinks, light champagne, a golden, I don't know what you call that, golden ochre right here, and then your kind of, you know, staple neutrals has one matte shadow in here, and hopefully you'll get a feel for how those apply as I'm showing this demo throughout this part right now. But basically, I wouldn't say you need to own both of these if you already have the Modern Renaissance, because the color palettes are so similar. The Modern Renaissance just has a few extra neutral mattes, has a few extra neutral shimmery shades, but I wouldn't say that the Cover Shop palette is lacking any of the standout Modern Renaissance shades, which, by the way, is the Ablaze eyeshadow palette. I should have said that right up front. It's the Cover Shop Ablaze eyeshadow palette. Very fitting, as it reminds me of like fire. Up next is the Smoky Eyeshadow Palette, and I was wearing a look from this. I recently did a hair tutorial for like big voluminous hair, and I was wearing an emerald look from this. Once again, zero primer underneath these shades, but this emerald shade here just popped on the lid. So this has two matte shades, one classic matte taupe, one classic cream, and then a bunch of satiny gem tones, a smoky gray, a taupe, a matte deep gray, and then this disco-y shimmery black right over here. So definitely a very dramatic, very smoky as the name suggests, but super, super pigmented. And when it came to comparisons, the only palette that I could find that looked remotely similar is one from e.l.f., but it really does not do the shade range justice. It lacks the mattes, it lacks the ultra disco-y black, but you do find some similar parallels with the emerald green and the plum, and that is the e.l.f., what is this called? The Smoke, it's also called the Smoke palette. So you can see here, similar color palette, but really by no means a dupe. And I would definitely recommend the Smoky Eyes palette over the e.l.f., over this guy if you can, unless that is, I do want to say, unless all you're after are these beautiful deep gem tones, and then, you know, if you know you're not going to wear them a whole lot, they're just your, you know, weekend looks, your once in a blue moon looks, then definitely don't break the bank on a palette, go with something from e.l.f. But if you know that you're going to wear these mattes every day during the day, and then you're going to want to smoke it out at night, this is an amazing palette to do that, and it's still not an overwhelming amount of shadows to get it done. Up next is the palette that I used in that Husband Does My Voiceover tutorial, and this it's gonna go fast because I didn't find any that were comparable in my collection anyway. This is the Smashbox Cover Shot Golden Hour eyeshadow palette, and contrary to what he was saying in that video, there aren't very many pinks, if any at all. He kept calling everything pink, but the truth is there is one kind of reddish leaning brown, and then plum, and then light plum, and then a bunch of kind of wheat neutral, like shimmery champagne-y wheat toned neutrals. Not quite sure where he was going with that, but just want to confirm right now, not pink. Beautiful, but not pink. And then you get two matte shades up top here for blending. Once again, another great palette. Let me know down below though. I know there has to be a similar palette like this out there. I just don't own it. So definitely comment down below if you own something similar, and maybe even have compared the two against each other yourself. Next up we have the Metallic Eyeshadow Palette, and the one thing about this, shadows are all still great, same quality, they are all shimmery though. I would not call these a metallic finish. So if you're going into this thinking it's going to be some foiled effect palette, I would say definitely shimmer, high shine shimmer, but not metallic, but especially nowadays when we have these true like liquid metal, you know, liquid or cream eyeshadows, I would say these are high shine shimmery shadows. So you're not gonna get lots of glitter, but you're not gonna get like chrome. This is really pretty and reminds me a lot of a Morphe palette that I own. It's the 12S, I forget what range this is from, but like I said, very similar. The main difference being that the Morphe palette, I'm not gonna make it, we're not gonna make it. Okay, saved it, here we go. The main difference is that the Morphe has this plum over here, but I mean, for the most part, look at this. Like you have your steely gray, you have some cooler taupes, you have some warmer taupes, like very, very similar. So much so that I would say if you own the Morphe, I wouldn't recommend getting the cover shot because you get almost like the identical shadows and it's cheaper. But still a beautiful palette from the Cover Shot collection. If you're eyeing this, it's a beautiful palette, but you might also consider this if you're looking for a more affordable dupe. Two more palettes left, guys. This one is the Softlight Eyeshadow Palette, and I do want to hold it up next to the palette I just talked about because they are kind of similar, but basically like the Softlight palette is Diet Metallic Eye Palette because these are also all frosty in this, but you don't get the same amount of contrast. Like this offers a whole lot of contrast. This is kind of like a strobing palette in my mind, but the pans aren't large enough to like fit a strobing or a highlighting or, you know, like a cheek sized brush in here. And so this is personally my least favorite amongst the line. I think maybe people who just like that soft wash of color across the lids but want to change it up a little bit during the day, they might get a lot of good out of this, but I personally just found that there were too many shadows in here that look too similar, and I tend to like more high contrast looks, obviously. I mean, look at what I'm wearing right now. But I do want to say that it reminded me me a lot of the Charlotte Tilbury Legendary Muse. I think it's called the Legendary Muse palette. This guy I talked about in a demo relatively recently. It's a limited edition in one of her holiday sets, so if you saw this, really liked it, but wanted maybe a little bit more shadow variety, or if you're watching this and you can't get your hands on this anymore because it was limited edition, this is kind of a good alternative because it has the same sort of look and feel, I would say, as the Charlotte Tilbury, where you're working with a bunch of light, soft neutrals. And I will say that when I was trying the Charlotte Tilbury, I was very impressed with the look it created despite not having that contrast. So I definitely see, even though I like bolder looks, I definitely see the merits in having, you know, the kind of soft dimension you can create with a palette like this. But of all of the palettes in this collection, it's just the one that I see having the least use for in my everyday life. And last, on the other end of the spectrum, probably another thing that I don't have a ton of use for, but I still love, because who doesn't love a good bold eyeshadow color? It is the Bold Eye Palette. That's appropriately named. And as you could probably guess, it is the rainbow palette that has kind of, I feel like this is the one that everyone likes to talk about because, whoa, look at those colors. So I had a specific request to compare this. By the way, you get these matte colors down here, but then these top two colors up top, one is kind of a transforming lavender shade, and then this one over here, this will sneak up on you. It's like a duochrome purpley blue shimmery shade. Both of them very, very beautiful, and I like that they put it in here because they're kind of transformative shades, and I feel like when you find a rainbow palette, it lacks any sort of extra dimension. It's like gives you a bunch of matte, colorful shades, and then nothing to help you blend or change things up if you want to. So really love that they did that, and then I had a specific request to compare it to, and rightfully so, the Urban Decay Full Spectrum palette. So naturally, you're gonna get less colors, basically. The Full Spectrum contains a mix of mattes, shimmers, glitters, all that kind of stuff. You also get a black, a silver, a white, in addition to all your colors. So right off the bat, you're getting less variety, but I will say, as far as texture goes, I like the matte formula in the Smashbox much better. And if you find that you aren't gonna wear these bold colors a whole lot, you know, you just want a quick sampling, this is like the Smashbox is just the perfect palette. If you are doing, you know, you regularly like to wear these kinds of colors, or you happen to be doing, I don't know, a rainbow cheetah makeup look, then yeah, this is gonna be a great palette for you. But otherwise, if you just wanna dip your toe into the world of color, this is a really nice palette to do it with. And then the other one that I wanted to mention here, because there's another striking resemblance, is the Viseart Editorial palette. And this is not a cheap palette. I mean, I think if you're familiar with the brand, you'll know Viseart does not make cheap eyeshadow palettes by any means. I think it's 80 bucks. By comparison, it's the same sort of thing where you get the colors you need if you're just wanting to dip your toe into color. You're missing the white, obviously, but for the most part, you're well represented across the rainbow spectrum, but you're doing it at a fraction of the cost. So that's something else that I wanted to point out. And that is the last of them, guys. I've walked you through all the palettes. I really hope you found this useful and hope this video wasn't too long, but mostly I just wanted to make sure you guys got all the details you felt like you needed to make a purchase decision, or not, whatever you choose. So hope it was helpful. Oh, these are limited edition. That's the other thing. They were made in collaboration with Instagrammer Shay Mitchell, and so I think these are going to be limited edition. So if you saw one you like, get your hands on them while you can. That's it from me. Thank you guys so much for watching. Please don't forget to subscribe if you haven't already, and I will catch you in my next video. Bye, guys.